Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another video for you. It's a new month, so I have a new video for you voted by the patrons. This time, it's a new series. Yeah, I know I have too many already, but I like them. I'm calling it Quest Log, and it's a series focused on the more epic and cool quest chains in the game, both ones that have been removed, and also ones that you can still do today. The name might be pending. I'm not sure if I like that one, so we'll see. Give me any suggestions if you have any. But for this one, I wanted to cover the Scepter of the Shifting Sands questline from Vanilla World of Warcraft. I've danced around this chain a few times whenever I mentioned the old AQ40 event, but I think it's time to give it its proper due since it was one of the bigger chains from back in the day. It even gave you a legendary mount and a unique title if you did it fast enough. It required coordination, not just from your entire guild, but also the server. It spanned dozens and dozens of quests, included reputation farming, material farming, raiding both indoors and outdoors, and even interacting with major lore characters and heroes from past Warcraft games. It's considered by many to be the granddaddy of all quest chains, especially for its time. Completing it back when the content was current was a huge achievement before achievements were even added to the game, and you were awarded appropriately. It was removed in the Cataclysm expansion, along with a ton of other stuff. What is dead may never die. So, let's go over it from the beginning. You might find this handy as a guide for when Classic launches, but that's not really the intention since I won't be going over boss strategies and whatnot. I just want to give you an overall look at the chain. And we'll do it in two parts since it is quite long, and I do want to be fairly thorough. It all started in the Silithus Zone, which was released in patch 1.9, which was the Encourage patch. In this one, we got two raids. The 20-man Ruins of Encourage, and the 40-man Temple of Encourage. But there was a catch. The gate leading to these raids was locked, and the only way to open it was to complete something called the Encourage War Effort. These gates were locked long ago during a conflict called the War of the Shifting Sands, where the minions of the old god Cthulhu, the Kiraji, launched an invasion upon Kalimdor. Not going into super detail here, many people died in the skirmish, but ultimately, the Kiraji were temporarily defeated by being locked in their kingdom by the Archdruid Fandral Steghelm and a few dragons. There's still a threat that needs to be taken care of though, so the Alliance and the Horde have to work together to launch an offensive against the Silithid Kingdom. And to do that, they need copper bars and many other crafting materials. You turned these into NPCs in your faction capital, and it kept a running tally that was shared with your entire server. So, hundreds of thousands of crafting materials, and it was a pretty time-consuming thing. Definitely a good time for gold makers, that's for sure. And it was also the first time that I recall that the Horde and Alliance had to actually work together in-game. This was pretty substantial since the faction war was at its peak, so it's like two enemies working together for the greater good, which would be repeated later on, but this was pretty cool since it was the first time. While all of this was going on though, in the Cenarian Hold Hub in Silithus, you could get a quest called What Tomorrow Brings from an NPC named Beristalth of the Shifting Sands, a Night Elf hunter. He gives you some cryptic information and basically sends you to the Caverns of Time in the Tannerus Zone to talk to the Bronze Dragonflight, who'll sort of be your brain trust for this chain. They have a reputation tied to them called the Brood of Nozdormu. You're pretty familiar with these guys by now. They're the time-traveling dragonflight located at the Caverns of Time, which was closed in vanilla, so this little hub was right outside of the gates. The specific NPC you're looking for here is Anachronos, and he doesn't mess around. He gives you a follow-up quest called Only One May Rise, which requires you to kill the Broodlord Lashslayer boss in the Blackwing Lair raid. So already we have some raiding content here. At this point though, if you were a serious guild, this wasn't a huge challenge as he was only the third boss in the raid. The only challenging part was that, until a Burning Crusade patch, just one head dropped for just one person out of your entire 40-man raid. Well, it makes sense if you think about it. One Draconid drops one head. Pretty unforgiving though, and you can safely bet that there was a ton of drama that came with it. The question was, out of all 40 raid members, who got the head? It varied from guild to guild, of course, but whenever something is in such a high demand and low supply, you knew that there was going to be trouble, and only a fraction of the people who started this chain would actually make it to the very end. Who'll be the one to get the legendary mount and the unique title? Only one may rise, indeed. But you took him down, a lucky person got some head, and you brought it back. This is personally where my quest ended back in the day, but if you continued, you got the next part titled The Path of the Righteous. Even though you just defeated one of Nefarian's most powerful lieutenants, the Bronze Dragonflight is still distrustful of you, and you must prove yourself in order to help him. You're given a special badge called the Agent of Nozdormu, and if you have this in your bags, upon killing Silithid creatures in the game, you're able to loot Carapace fragments from them. For this quest, you needed to get 200 of these fragments, and after you turn it in, you got 500 reputation with the Brood, and you unlock a repeatable quest for another 200 fragments. You started at 0 of 36,000 at Hated, and to get the next quest, you needed to get to neutrals, so you're talking thousands upon thousands of fragments. Yeah, like I said, this is where I tapped out back in the day. It was doable, but holy cow did it take a long time. There was a way to speed it up though. Each time you completed this quest, you also got an item called the Proxy of Nozdormu, which deputized another player and gave them the badge that allowed them to farm fragments, and the fragments themselves weren't bound, so typically guilds, if they were smart, would sort of put their focus on a few people, have everyone farm fragments for them to try to complete it more efficiently. So, you farmed and farmed and farmed until you melded into your chair, and once you reached neutral, you were ready for the next part. You were sent to the Silithus Zone to obtain something called a crystalline tear and to gaze into its depths. As the quest says, the tear serves as a symbol of the great losses beset upon the Bronze Dragonflight in the War of the Shifting Sands. Upon clicking it, you get a little cutscene here recreating the battle in the war. Various members of the Dragonflights create a diversion for the Archdruid Fandral Steghelm and Anachronos to seal the gate to Ahn'Qiraj. You may remember Steghelm as the Archdruid of Darnassus during Vanilla, while Malfurion's Stormrage was lost in the Emerald Nightmare. He's kind of a pecker because he was sabotaging everything all along and kept Malfurion in the Nightmare, but that's a story for another time. So, he and Anachronos and the dragons cast nature, frost, and fire spells upon the small army in front of them. Anachronos time locks them, and they successfully seal off the gate to the kingdom. Anachronos tells Steghelm that if he should ever need to gain access, he would need the Scepter of the Shifting Sands, and that he needed to use this scepter on the gong right outside of the gate, although it would once again unleash the Qiraji upon the world. He hands him the scepter, but Steghelm is having none of it. Having recently lost his son, Valstan, he wants nothing to do with the Qiraji or the dragons for that matter, and knowing that the scepter was the only way of letting them back out, he smashed it into pieces and walked off into the sunset. Anachronos picked up the shattered fragments, but the scepter was no more. Returning to him, he says that he entrusted the shards that were etched into the scepter to 3 guardians of each dragonflight: Irenicus of the green, Vilistraz of the red, and Azurgos of the blue, and Anna himself has the bronze one. Well, apparently he's a really bad judge of character because all 3 of those dragons are either evil or crazy. To open the gate, we need to remake this scepter, so we need the shards. The quest seemingly ends here, but he gives you a hint and says to seek out these dragons. From here, the quest splits into 3 parts: the green shard, the red shard, and the blue shard. Let's tackle the green shard first. He mentioned Irenicus as a guardian, and if you remember, you could find his shade in the temple of Atholl Hakkar, also known as the Sunken Temple. Lore-wise, he was to enter the temple and destroy the physical manifestation of the blood god Hakkar, who resided there. He was successful, but he went insane shortly after due to the corruption of the Emerald Nightmare. He never returned, and his shade remains inside, attacking any intruders. This place was quite the labyrinth to say the least, but you progressed through it, killed some trolls, dragons, and eventually reached his room. Except, if you completed that initial Scepter chain, Malfurion's Stormrage will appear in front of you and offer a quest. He says to get the green Scepter shard, you must first cleanse Irenicus of his corruption. Just taking out his shade won't do it. He tells you that you need to seek the aid of Tyrande Whisperwind through one of his agents, and bids you farewell. This agent turns out to be a wisp located north of the entrance to the city. It pierces your thoughts and tells you that Tyrande will be notified of her plans to cleanse Irenicus, and you're sent to the Keeper Remulos in the Moonglade hub to the east. Remember, Irenicus is in the Emerald Nightmare along with Malfurion, and we need to pull him out to cleanse him, but it has to be of his own will, so we have to lay a trap for him and use Malfurion's physical body as bait to lure him out. So, to do that, you need 4 items called Fragments of the Nightmare's Corruption, located all over the world. Across Azeroth, you could find these green emerald dream portals. Typically, they had outdoor raid bosses guarding them, along with elite dragonkin. These shards had a small chance to drop from these dragonkin, so you'd form a small group to farm those. There's one located in Ashenvale, the Hinterlands, Fairless, and Duskwood, so lots of traveling. The one in Duskwood was a little special, and it required a full-on raid as the mob who dropped the shard here was the Twilight Corruptor. This guy didn't drop any loot aside from the shard, and he was designed for a full raid of 40 people to take him down, so again, being in a guild was a necessity. But once you had the shards, you're ready to summon Irenicus. Remulos walks over to the hub, Nighthaven, which is swarming with guards, preparing for the oncoming assault of the Green Dragon. He begins the summoning ritual above the nearby lake, and Irenicus arrives. The hub is swarmed with ghostly shades, and you have to defend the townsfolk until Tyrande arrives to cleanse Irenicus. Remember, we don't want to kill him, just free him of his corruption. Now, why we didn't wait until Tyrande was actually here before we summon him, I have no idea, but whatever. The actual fail triggers here are if Irenicus or the Keeper Remulos dies, so you must keep them alive at all times. It required at least 1 full raid if I remember correctly. Typically, guilds would even call in other guilds to sort of help them out since this was out in the world. Anyone could help if they wanted to, or possibly on PvP servers even sabotage each other and get some easy kills on some unsuspecting raiders. If you hold out long enough until Tyrande arrives, she exorcises Irenicus of his corruption. You know, the power of a loon compels you, that sort of thing. And actually, something neat was that when he's cleansed, the entire server got an emote saying that Irenicus, Tyrant of the Dream, is wholly consumed by the light of a loon. Tranquility sets in over Moonglade. This mystified people back in the day. They'd go, who the heck is Irenicus? That's what I thought back then, not knowing the full extent of the quest chain. So, a pretty tough event. But if you're successful, you got the green Scepter shard. Just 2 more to go. And you also got a choice between a caster nature resistance necklace or some agility nature resistance boots. These were pretty appropriate rewards because one of the bosses in Ahn'Qiraj, you know, the place we're trying to unlock, required a lot of nature resistance to kill, so these were actually pretty useful to have. Alright, this is about the halfway point, I'd say, maybe a bit past it. Like I said, this one's a doozy, so I'm gonna take a break here and finish up later. Keep an eye out for part 2, which will hopefully be done within a week. In that one, we'll finish up with the 2 remaining shards, talk about the finale, the rewards, and all of that good stuff, so I'll see you then. I hope you enjoyed this series. I think it could have some potential since there are a lot of cool quest chains in the game, and like I said, not just the ones that were removed. There's a few current ones that I'd like to talk about as well, but I just figured that I'd knock this one out first since it's like the holy grail. Anyways, that's all I got, I guess. I hope you found the video interesting or entertaining. Like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.